Revelation 12 verse 9. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Satan and his angels are deceiving the whole world through his seed. The seed of the serpent is not some scary-looking monster who is so wicked that you could spot him a mile away. The seed of the serpent will be religious and have many righteous qualities. 2 Corinthians 11 verses 13 through 15. These people are false apostles. They are deceitful workers who disguise themselves as apostles of Christ. But I am not surprised. Even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no wonder that his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. In the end, they will get the punishment their wicked deeds deserve. Remember, Satan's downfall happened because he wants to be worshipped. He wants to be like the Most High God. Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 14. How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning! How you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations! For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. This is why there is such a big push for the Trinity doctrine. People have been imprisoned and killed for rejecting it. This is why it's so important for the seed of the serpent to be co-eternal and co-equal with the only one true God, who alone is eternal and immortal. 1 Timothy 6 verses 15 to 16. At just the right time, Christ will be revealed from heaven by the blessed and only Almighty God, the King of kings and Lord of lords, who alone has immortality. Satan's desire is to be worshipped. He even tried to get Messiah to worship him. Matthew 4 verses 8 through 10. Again, the devil took Jesus up on an exceedingly high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, All these things I will give you if you bow down and worship me. Then Jesus said to him, Away with you, Satan! For it is written, You shall worship the Lord your God, and him only you shall serve. Today's false system of worship has its roots in Babylon. Pontifex Maximus, Bridge Maker. Title of the Pope. It was originally the title of the chief pagan priest at Rome. In English it is rendered Supreme Pontiff. Notice the Pope's triple crown. This entitles him to hold the position of Supreme God of heaven, earth, and under the earth. Hence the Pope is crowned with a triple crown, as King of heaven and of earth and of the lower regions. Lucius Ferraris, Prompta Bibliotheca, Volume 6, pages 438, 442. Notice the hat tail and cross shapes on the Babylonian ruler's collar, and the sun image on his sleeve cuff. Now notice the ruler of spiritual Babylon. He has the same hat tail, cross shapes on his collar, and sun image on his sleeve cuff. This is why the message to God's people in these last days is to come out of Babylon. Revelation 18 verse 4. Then I heard another voice calling from heaven saying, Come out of Babylon, my people. Do not take part in her sins, or you will be punished with her. Satan's way to promote his system is through his spokesman. This is the man of sin who sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 3 through 4. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Pope is of so great dignity and so exalted that he is not a mere man. He is, as it were, God on earth, sole sovereign of the faithful of Christ, chief of kings, having plenitude of power. Lucius Ferraris, Prompta Bibliotheca. This is the same person who changed God's times and law and persecutes the saints. Daniel 7 verse 25. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1, 1923. The Pope has the power to change times, to abrogate laws, and to dispense with all things, even the precepts of Christ. The Pope has the authority and often exercised it, to dispense with the command of Christ. The Pope can modify divine law. Ferrari's Ecclesiastical Dictionary. The Church may by divine right confiscate the property of heretics, imprison their person, and condemn them to flames. In our age, the right to inflict the severest penalties, even death, belongs to the Church. There is no graver offense than heresy, therefore it must be rooted out. Public Ecclesiastical, Volume 2, page 142. This system persecutes heretics. The heretics are the saints who resist these changes to God's times and law. These are the ones who obey the commandments of God through the teachings of Messiah. Revelation 14 verse 12, here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Satan is at war with the saints, and he's using his religious system to do his work. Revelation 12 verse 17, this dragon was very angry with the woman. He went off to fight with the rest of her children. They are the ones who obey the laws of God and are faithful to the teachings of Jesus. The man of sin is the man who is seated in the Vatican. He is the spokesman for the serpent. It was Vatican that changed God's times and law, and today's Jesus is the seed of the serpent. Notice Jesus behind the Pope's throne. He's half man and half serpent. When you follow today's Jesus, he leads you away from God's law through a religious system that has its root in Babylonian sun worship. Sun worship in the house of God is nothing new to God's people. God has been fighting against this for thousands of years. Ezekiel 8 verses 15 through 16, have you seen this? He asked. But I will show you even more detestable sins than these. Then he brought me into the inner courtyard of the Lord's temple. At the entrance to the sanctuary, between the entry room and the bronze altar, there were about 25 men with their backs to the sanctuary of the Lord. They were facing east, bowing low to the ground, worshipping the sun. Sun worship is still going on in the Lord's house. Look at this statue in the Vatican. The woman on the right looks like she is cradling baby Jesus, but with a closer look you don't find a baby but rather, you find the sun. Is there a way to be sure that today's Jesus is the serpent's seed? Yes, there is. The true Messiah gave one sign to prove who he was, and that was the sign of Jonah. Matthew 12 verses 38 through 40. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you proving that you are what you claim to be. But he replied and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation seek after a sign. But no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For just as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. If the Jesus you are following does not fit the sign that true Messiah gave, you are following the serpent's seed. Let's take a closer look at the week of Messiah's crucifixion. This is going to be an eye-opener for you because you will see how Satan is definitely deceiving the whole world. Today, just about every church in the world celebrates Good Friday as Jesus' crucifixion and Easter Sunday as his resurrection. This is all rooted in Babylonian sun worship. The Easter or Ishtar symbolism of the Sunday resurrection of the spring fertility cult, Easter, the Anglo-Saxon form of Ishtar, is a pagan system of worship that first penetrated Christianity in the 2nd century. The symbolism stems from the death of Thomas on Friday and his resurrection on Sunday. The 40 days of Lent were picked as one day for each year of his life since he died at age 40. The rest of the traditions of Easter were Christianized into the story of the death and resurrection of Yeshua the Messiah. December 25th was observed as the birthday of the sun as part of the ancient Roman festival called Saturnalia. It was also the date of the birthday of the pagan sun god Mithras, sometimes also spelled Mitra. The Catholic Encyclopedia, in Roman culture, Sunday was the day of the sun god. In paganism, the sun was a source of life, giving warmth and illumination to mankind. Sunday, Wikipedia. On March 7, 321, Constantine I, Rome's first Christian emperor, decreed that Sunday would be observed as the Roman day of rest. On the venerable day of the sun let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. Sunday Wikipedia. Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1, 1923. Let's take a closer look at the timeline of events during the week of Messiah's crucifixion. Before we do this, we must first look at God's roadmap of these events found in the feast days. Leviticus 23 verses 5 through 7. On the 14th day of the first month at twilight is the Lord's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. It shall be a Sabbath, so do no customary work on it. It's very important to understand these 2 days, the 14th and the 15th. The 14th is Passover, and the very next day is the first day of a 7-day feast called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The first day of that 7-day feast is a Sabbath. That means Passover is not only Passover, it's also a preparation day. A preparation day comes before a Sabbath. It's the day they use to get things done because the next day is a Sabbath, so no work can be done. The 15th was a Sabbath, but it's not a normal Sabbath because it only came once a year, so they called it a high day. The 7th-day Sabbath comes every week, so it's not called a high day. John 19 verse 31. Therefore, because it was the preparation day, that the bodies should not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day. The night that Messiah was arrested, he instituted the Lord's Supper. Judas left to betray Messiah and then returned with the soldiers and arrested him. This took place at night. We know this because they came with torches and lanterns. John 18 verse 2 through 3. Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. Then Judas, having received a detachment of troops and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. They arrested Messiah and gave him an illegal trial, and they crucified him. This all took place on Passover, the 14th. Now remember, the 15th is the high Sabbath. So Mary had to wait for the high Sabbath to be over so that she could buy the spices to anoint Messiah's body. Mark 16 verse 1. Now when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome bought spices, that they might come and anoint him. Mary bought the spices and prepared them, but now the 7th-day Sabbath started, so they rested on the Sabbath. Luke 23 verse 56. Then they went home and prepared spices and ointments to anoint his body. But by the time they were finished, the Sabbath had begun, so they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Mary went to the tomb early Sunday morning while it was still dark and found the tomb was empty. This is because Messiah rose on the 3rd day, so by Sunday morning, he had already risen. John 20 verses 1 through 2. Early on Sunday morning, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance. She ran and found Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved. She said, "They have taken the Lord's body out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." Let's take a look at the chart I made because it will be easier to see and understand what's happening. The Lord's Supper took place on Tuesday the 13th at twilight. Judas left to get the soldiers, so when he got back it was already dark. In Messiah's day, a new day started at sunset, so Tuesday at sunset is now Wednesday the 14th and is now Passover. They arrest Messiah and crucify him on Passover, which is according to the feast of Passover. They take Messiah from the cross and place him in the tomb just before sunset. They did this because the next day is the 15th, so it's the high Sabbath, and they didn't want the bodies to be on the cross for the Sabbath. Mary had to wait for the high Sabbath to be over so that she could buy the spices to anoint Messiah's body. The high Sabbath was Thursday, so when the Sabbath was over it became Friday. Friday was a normal workday, so Mary was able to buy the spices. Mary buys the spices, but by the time she buys them and prepares them, the seventh-day Sabbath started, so she rests on the Sabbath according to the commandment. Now here's the important thing to see. You can't fit Wednesday, the Passover, Thursday the high Sabbath, Friday the normal work day, and Saturday, the seventh-day Sabbath between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. They don't fit. And besides, Friday to Sunday is not 3 days and 3 nights. If your Jesus doesn't fit the only sign that Messiah gave to prove who he was, you're following a false Messiah, created by Satan through the papacy, who is the spokesman of the serpent. Audience Hall is a place in the Vatican where the Pope sits on his throne and speaks to his listeners. It's the same place where the half-man, half-serpent is standing behind the Pope on his throne. Notice where the Pope's throne is? He's sitting right in the serpent's mouth. This is because he speaks for the serpent, and it's the serpent who gives the papacy his power, his throne and great authority. Revelation 13 verse 2, the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. Even the outside of Audience Hall looks like a serpent's head. This is the same head that Messiah crushes when he returns to set up his 1,000-year kingdom on the earth. Daniel 2 verse 44, in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that will never be destroyed, and this kingdom will not be left to another race of people. It will crush and put an end to all of these kingdoms, but it will stand forever. Genesis 3 verse 15, I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He will crush your head, and you will bruise his heel. This is the serpent's kingdom, with all its Babylonian beliefs and practices that Messiah crushes when he returns. Matthew 13 verses 40 to 41, therefore as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of this age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. The Pope speaks for the serpent, and the co-eternal and co-equal Jesus they created is Satan, making himself like the Most High God. Isaiah 14 verses 13 to 15, Satan, you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will be like the Most High. The message in these last days is God calling his people to come out of this Babylonian system of sun worship with all its pagan rituals. Have a blessed and happy Sabbath.